Taoiseach, Deputy Clare Daly, please.
Taoiseach, yesterday you got away with telling us that the Mother and Baby Home Commission needs time to finish its work. And on the surface that sounds reasonable enough. But the problem with that is that it doesn't deal with the time that it already has had. Set up to do a job in 3 years, what have we got after its 4 years of work? We've got 4 interim reports. The first looking for a time extension, the second telling us why it asked for a time extension in the first one, and incidentally its publication was delayed 8 months by the Minister because it also said that the Bethany Home survivors should never have been excluded from redress, a situation that has still not been addressed. The third, which devastated the survivor community, looking for an extra year, just before it should have concluded, and now this. At the 11th hour, another report looking for another year. Is this an actual joke? Do people in here honestly think that it's acceptable that we wring our hands for a little bit, play a bit of sympathy with the survivors and then move on to the next issue? Now, I'm not actually blaming you for this, but you're the one in power who can sort it out. We need to know why the Commission has not completed its work and who's going to be held to account. The report talks about a considerable workload to cross-reference documents. It talks about delays in evidence from the authorities who ran the institutions, which couldn't be examined until they'd finished the examination of the documents. Why not? Why hasn't this been done? Is it a question of resources? If it is, why didn't they flag it before now? If it's non-cooperation, why didn't they highlight it before now? Why did they only get the first tranche of documents over 2 years after the Commission was set up? Did they not ask for them? Were they obstructed in getting them? Why is a commission that was set up by the Department of Children, reliant on information from the Department of Children and the Department of Health, their words, to produce a comprehensive and accurate report, only receive information recently, a year after the business should have been concluded? They talk about being dismayed about so little information being kept by the HSE. They find it difficult to understand how relatively recent documents are not available. They don't understand why the HSE doesn't have any system of archiving material. Do you understand it? What have you done about it? Let's remember, this is the same HSE who 2 years before Tuam in 2012 had done a report about the 500 baby deaths in Bessborough. This beggars belief, Taoiseach. These are really fundamental issues, and there's so many more. How come they can come in within budget? How come it's not costing any more money for 2 extra years? Are they not going to pay the extra 2 years on their Bagot Street offices? Are they not going to pay salaries? Did we get it wrong the first time? These are fundamental questions, and there are so many more, and the only conclusion you can draw is either this Commission is grossly incompetent or it's been deliberately misled. And my question to you is, which is it? And is allowing it to continue without scrutinising these matters really in the interests of the people that you so accurately and articulately on Monday said were betrayed by this state?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Thank you, Deputy. I very much shared the distress and disappointment of former residents of the mother and baby homes that we do not yet have a final report from the Commission. We shouldn't forget that the Commission was established by these Oireachtas. I don't think any of us believed at the time that it would take as long as it has for that Commission to do its work and issue its report. And it is independent. The whole point of a Commission investigation is that it is independent of government. It is not a creature of government, and therefore I cannot answer questions on their behalf. If I were able to interfere in a Commission, if I was able to answer questions on their behalf, it wouldn't be independent, and that would defeat the whole purpose of having such a Commission investigation. What they have informed us, though, is that they have more work to do. They have interviewed 519 former residents so far. They want to interview more, and they want everyone to have their opportunity to be interviewed and have their story heard. They have received new material which needs to be considered and have received massive documents, over 100,000 pages, I'm informed, all of which need to be considered properly. They tell us that they have adequate resources and will come in on budget, notwithstanding the delay, and haven't requested additional resources. Should a request for additional resources come forward, it will of course be considered. But it isn't the case that we will have to wait another year before anything happens. We are going to have a comprehensive report on the burials. That's scheduled to come in March, and that will give us more information about the burial grounds. We've already taken a decision as government a few months ago that we will carry out investigations at Tuam with the view to identifying the remains of some of the children who were buried there, if possible, and give them the appropriate burial that they should have had when they died. And Minister Zappone, working through the consultative forum, is drawing up proposals as to how we might do something to assist and support the health and well-being of former residents while we wait on that final report.
Taoiseach, Deputy Daly.
Taoiseach, but the information you've given the House is actually inaccurate. How do you know that this Commission will carry out its work now? You refer to other interviews that need to be had and extra documentation that came in. Do you not know that the report that was published yesterday referred to the interviews being concluded this month? Can you tell me, have they been concluded? They said that they were expecting 277 files to be delivered in December. Were they delivered? Do you know that? And if you don't know it, why don't you know it? I don't actually expect you to be on top of every detail, but there's a huge problem in this House. We set up commissions of investigations in response to appalling scandals and horrific abuses perpetuated on our people, and then we let them carry on and we let them ask for extra time, and you don't pose or answer any of the very valid questions I raised about why the delay was in place. And it's just not acceptable, and it's a feature of Irish political life with the opposition, with the media, that nobody follows it through. Last May you told me in response to the cervical cancer and the lack of action on mandatory disclosure you'd have a patient safety bill in, it would be implemented. Everybody forgets about that. We don't see it through. We had the Grey scandal. You set up the Farrelly Commission. Everybody forgets about it. It gets an extension. You've got to see these issues through. Will you please answer the questions that you were asked about why this tribunal has not done, the Commission has not come up with the job it was supposed to do? Is it being obstructed, or are they just incompetent? Because there's no other answer unless you can invent one.
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
The information that I have, Deputy, is that the interviews are not yet concluded. There are still 26 or more to be done, and that information note is from the 22nd of January. It may be out of date, but the information that I have is that the interviews have not yet been concluded. The information I have is that the discovery of records are complete and the files have been delivered, but that doesn't preclude the possibility that further records may be found. And that does happen on occasion, particularly with historical records. And the Minister has met with Judge Murphy to raise her concerns and the Government's concerns about the delay.